and welcome to the Real Shy Power Pack series, where I bring to you 50 amazing business experts. Today, I have with me executive consultant and advisor to CEOs and senior leaders, president of One Team Inc., and author, Miss Karen Walker. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be one of your 50.
Yes, and one of my top 50. What an amazing bio you have, Ms. Walker. It is indeed a pleasure to have you here with us today. So tell us, who is Karen Walker, and give us a little bit of your backstory.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, so I am an executive consultant, advisor, coach, speaker, and now an author. I just added a book, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a bit. But the backstory, sort of before all of that, was I'm an engineer by degree, so I come at my work a little differently than many people do that are in my field, which is primarily around supporting CEOs in their internal strategies to support their external growth. But prior to my consultancy, I was one of the very early employees at Compaq Computer. In fact, before we'd shipped any product or made any money. And at that time, we became the fastest growing company in American history. So we did $111 million in our first year. We were the fastest to $1 billion at that time. And by the time I left 14 years later, we were at about $15 billion and had grown from 100 employees to 17,000. So I was part of the leadership team. I got to be part of an amazing success story. Sort of a great product market fit, and then this high performance team that supported it. And I really got from that work and the work of building my own team as well as working with the rest of the Compaq team, a sense of what it takes to support growth. And that's what I've spent now the rest of my career doing.
Wow. So what led to this amazing book?
Yeah. I love this book. It was a long time coming. I realized I had sort of an aha moment that both from the work at Compaq, but also the work that I've done subsequently in my 2 decades of consulting with high growth CXOs, that there's some main themes, and both in terms of what people were doing well and what they weren't doing well, that was enabling the growth. And so that's really what led to the book, was a desire for me to sort of codify my ideas about what senior leaders should be focused on in order to support growth, and also trying to reach the reason to write a book. It helped me think things through, but it also helps me reach a wider audience so that people who I'm not working with directly have access to these ideas and hopefully can support the growth of their organizations as well.
Amazing. Huh. So the name of your book is No Dumbing Down, a no-nonsense guide for CEOs on organizational growth. Why the name No Dumbing Down and No Nonsense Guide?
Yeah, so first to say, this is a book that's aimed at CEOs and senior leaders, but I think it's very useful, and I've used it with clients who are not in the C-suite, because for anyone in an organization, it's important to know what's going on with their senior leaders and both how to prepare themselves, but also what to focus on. But the no dumbing down itself is one of the strategies in the book, not the only strategy, but an important one for supporting growth. And no dumbing down came about as a result of me thinking about what it is in companies when they try to involve teams, which we should do because teams have a lot of potential to get things done, both functionally and cross-functionally in organizations. But oftentimes we get something I call teamwork as usual when we try for teams. And what happens is we get our hopes up. We go to our first team meeting. We may or may not have been well chartered. We meet our teammates. We try to do things together. And over time, what we realize is that although things may get better at the beginning, then they sort of tail off and they may even get worse than they were before we started the teams. And the reason for that is the team can only work at the level of the lowest functioning member. And so what occurs is team members dumb down to the lowest functioning member's level. Now, there are a number of reasons why this happens. One is maybe they just don't have the skills to work together as a team, because although those skills are similar to what it takes for us to be amazing individual contributors, they're not the same You have to have different interpersonal skills, right, to work together as a team. You have to have better conflict skills. You have to be aligned in terms of what you're looking for goals, in terms of your objectives, in terms of priority setting. There are all kinds of things that it takes to make a team work. The team needs to be well chartered. You need to be able to deal with office politics, which come up from time to time in teams, right? And so what we're talking about here is really how do you create a culture in your organization that doesn't allow dumbing down, so that when people see it happening, they A, call it out, and B, do something about it. And you as a senior leader in an organization can do the same thing. Because if you don't just lose the potential of whatever that team was working on, but your A players, right, your stars in your organization, they do not want to work in organizations and on teams where they can't work at their full potential. They don't want to dumb down, and they won't do it for very long. So either this kind of behavior gets corrected, or, they start to see the team as a target, and they'll make for the exits, right? They'll either disengage from the team, or worse, they'll disengage from the organization.
You're exactly right. Now, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but a lot of the things that you've said and your strategies can also be applied to network marketing. Now, I know that you're targeting CEOs, but I've noticed that these strategies, guys, are powerful strategies for those of you who are saying, well, I'm not a CEO, I'm not an entrepreneur, I'm a network marketer. These strategies are also very useful in terms of team building. So before we go...
Yeah, I mean, I would say probably a third of my work, maybe a little more, is working with teams. Now, those are not all, many of those are senior teams, but they're not all senior teams, right? But it's really helping the team become a high-performing team. And dumbing down is one of the things that gets in the way of that. And that's for any team, anywhere.
So before we go into a few strategies from this powerful book, I kind of want to pick your brain.
Sure.
We have an expert here on team building, so let's talk teams. What advice would you give to a startup entrepreneur right now who is building a team?
Yeah, great question. I work with a number of startups, and I would give the same advice that I would give to my clients, and that is, first of all, we definitely did this at Compaq. It's one of the things that helped us be successful. You want to hire for the soft skills as much as for the hard skills, right? It's wonderful to get somebody in your team that can do the functional thing that needs to be done. But if they can't do it in alignment with the rest of the organization, then they're not a good hire. You're going to end up needing to replace them as you grow. And while you might have to do that over time anyway, don't start out knowing that you're going to have to replace them because they can't work well with others. And by working well, I mean things like, can they work towards optimizing for the whole versus just maximizing their function, right? So, for example, you might have an amazing salesperson, I've certainly been in this situation, who could sell anything, right, to anybody. And you might think that's a really good thing, and it is, as long as they sort of sell the things that you're able to deliver. And if they're not able to do that, if they're just out selling, well, then your organization won't be able to deliver on the promises that they've made to your customers, and that won't be good, right? So hire for people who have both the technical skills that you need as well as sort of those softer skills. The second thing I would say is sort of hire ahead of what you need. So by that, I don't mean that you hire people way early, although if you have the funds to do that, that's not bad. Oftentimes we don't have the funds. But to hire people who can do the job, not just today's job, but tomorrow's job. Hire people who believe in the growth of your organization and want to come be at the stage that it is now, but know that they won't be able to use all their skills until the company grows a little bit. And that way you'll be building a foundation that can that can be built upon as the organization expands with growth. Makes sense?
Yes, definitely. So let's say I have been in business for some time, because we do have some people in the audience that are veterans in their business. So let's say I've been in business for some time and I have unmotivated employees who do not want to grow. What do you suggest I do? Yeah,
well, the first thing I would ask is, why do you think that is, right? Most people don't want to come to work every day and be in positions where they're just doing rote tasks or the same thing over and over, and they're not growing and developing. In fact, I have never gone into an organization where there was someone who, given the chance to grow and develop, didn't take it, right? Now, that often means that they have to take a little risk because they're going to be doing things differently than they were before. So you might have someone who's risk averse, but again, I find that to be pretty rare. So I would say the first thing is just to acknowledge to the group that you want to give them opportunity to grow and develop as the company grows and develops. And then I would speak with each of them individually about what are their hopes and dreams for their careers. You might share some of yours while you're having that conversation. And then, sort of put, once you have that sort of information about what people want to do, sort of think about what it is that the company needs over the next period of time. And, you can put people in positions they're not quite ready for, as long as you give them, sort of skills training if that's required functionally, or you can put them in place where they have people around them who know how to do the job, so they won't fail or won't feel badly in the new position. But to give people an opportunity to say what it is that they're interested in doing, to develop, and then secondly, give them an opportunity to do it. You want to give people new things to do in low risk situations, and put them in positions where they can excel in high-risk situations. So don't take someone who says, hey, I want to do this new thing. I'm not saying that you should go put them sort of in your riskiest client, for example, but sort of match those things up. And just the fact that you heard what they said and you trusted them enough to give them a growth and development opportunity will go a very long way towards motivating your teams. I'll just say one more quick thing about that, and that is that oftentimes when I see an organization where employees are not very motivated about their jobs, it's sometimes because they just can't see how their work really matters, right? How does that tie into the vision of the organization? How does it matter to the customer at the end of the day? What difference are they really making? So anything that you can do to create that line of sight between what a person's doing and the actual difference it makes to your client, your customer, your organization, will also help them motivate themselves.
Wow, that's powerful. Okay, so I have one last question, and then we'll go into your book.
Okay.
So let's say I am a serial entrepreneur. I have more than one business. Now, generally, the trend for CEOs is if you're not performing, if it's not working, I'm going to cut. It's the mindset. A lot of times, if someone, and then you have a high turnover rate. Why do you think a lot of CEOs go for the punchline instead of that level of intimacy that you're talking about and really holding on to employees long term?
Yeah. So I would say that sometimes the CEO doesn't know how to develop. Perhaps they never had coaching and mentoring. Perhaps they didn't get developed except the work they did on their own. I know as a young manager myself, when I first went into the workplace, I thought, I know how to do this. Everybody else does too. Well, it turned out that wasn't true, right? And so I had to get coaching and developing and mentoring in order to develop my leadership skills. That doesn't happen for everyone. So that may be the first thing. They don't know how. Right. Secondly, the CEO may not have time to develop the person, right? I mean, I'm all for developing people. It's part of what I do for a living. And if you have a situation where your organization has outgrown what the person's able to do, even if they could develop that skill over time, if you need it right now, it may not be possible to develop them, right? But I would ask everyone, any manager or leader, to just ask themselves that question and to be doing it proactively and frequently, right? What skills does this person have? What skills does my organization need tomorrow? How am I developing my employees to make sure there's a match when we get there? And do I have a need for skills that I don't have time to develop or I don't have in the organization? And that's when you really have to go outside to hire.
Right. I like that. Okay, so let's go into about 4 strategies from your book.
Yes, what do you want me to just tell you the 4 strategies and a little about them, or do you want to ask me about them? What would be best?
Well, you can go ahead.
Okay. I'm happy to talk. Always happy to talk. Yeah, so the strategies in the book, again, these are internal strategies to support external growth. And so this is not about product market fit. If you're a growth company, you have a good product market fit. When I go into organizations, it's really the technical stuff that gets in the way, right? I'm making sure that people are clear about what they're doing and why, both the senior leaders as well as the rest of the organization, and then helping them execute on that. So looking at sort of processes, tools, behaviors that might be there. And often it's the stuff in the white spaces that gets in the way. But these particular strategies, plus the 5th, which is sort of a key to making things happen, are, again, what I've seen over and over in my career make the most difference the quickest for high growth companies. So the first is this idea of having teams that work at their full potential, right? Which helps you attract and retain A players in addition to getting the performance out of your teams. Secondly, it's this idea of, I think about sort of startup to grown up as companies grow, that's a continuum. It's not just a one-way street. That oftentimes you find companies who get stuck in a certain stage. So it's easy to see companies stuck in startup, right? They don't have the tools and processes to support themselves. But you also see companies that get stuck in grown up. They have so many tools and so many processes that no matter what's right in front of them, they rely on processes and tools that don't support them. They get in the way, in fact, of getting things done. And so to think of your organization as a place where you can choose the right response to the situation you're in. So what I mean by that is you may have a process for something. Good to have a process if it's a repeatable situation that you find yourself in, but that doesn't mean that it's like the hammer that you have to hit all the nails with, right? Think about the place that you're in right now and what the right reaction or response should be to that situation, not just what you've always done before. On the other hand, if you don't have many processes, think about what's replicable, right? What can you sort of turn into a utility so when you flip the switch, it just happens. So you don't have to think about it again. Your senior staff doesn't have to think about it again. It just occurs, right? So it's sort of a continuum from startup to grown up, but also I think about it as my SOP continuum from seat of the pants to standard operating process, right? Some things you need to respond to seat of the pants because there's a lot of change going on in the world and you need to be agile enough to respond to it. Other things, stick with your standard operating procedure. You can also think about this idea I have called bumper cars, which is that we know that organizations don't grow in a straight line. I mean, it's really rare to set a plan from here and say we're going to here and have it happen that way. Usually it's more like this or this, right? But it's rarely like that. And so to think about what are sort of the guardrails that you need to put in place so that as your growth either exceeds or is less than what you planned, what can you pre-plan so that when you hit those guardrails, you can course correct, right, and get back on the path that you need to go on. I mean, it might be that if you're growing faster than you thought, you reach a place where even though you could make more sales, it's clear that you can't fulfill them. And in that case, you need to make a conscious decision about slowing down sales, selling something different, or taking time to really reinforce what's going on inside the organization so that you can support and then sort of change your direction so that you're on that higher growth curve. But you can't do it with just one part of the organization, right? It has to, again, as I said, it has to be optimized for the whole organization. And so I think about that like a bumper car, right? You're just playing bumper cars and things come in and they hit you off course, right? Well, what saves you in that game is having a guardrail that sort of brings you back to the center of the arena so that you can stay in that contained space. And then another strategy is, I call it levitating, but it's really about taking time to think, sort of to get above it all and look at the big picture, sort of detach yourself from the short-term urgent things that fill up most of our days so that you can see the big picture both in your company but also in your space, right? What's going on in the part of the world that you're selling your services into, what's happening with your competitors, what's happening in the world events that might be impacting you. So how do you get above it all and sort of look at the long term? Right? So there are strategies for doing that. And part of that is just taking control of your calendar, because too many of us have ceded control of our calendar and we just do what's on them rather than carving out time for the big things and making time to get away from it all and look at the big picture. And then I think the final thing in the book has to do with what I call the so what. So many of us have gone to conferences or we've read books and it's like, oh wow, that was a great idea. I'm gonna, whatever, make a difference, change. And then we get back and we have another 200 emails and whatever else is on our desk when we get back from the conference or reading the book, and we don't change anything. And so this is the accountability factor, right? How do we hold ourselves accountable for the changes that we want to make? And there are a number of strategies about doing that. Primarily understanding that mutual accountability is much stronger than individual accountability. Now, your listeners, right, the people that are paying attention to us, are successful people. And because they're successful people, that tells me that they probably have really good discipline individually, because that's what makes us get things done. But that can be fragile if you think about all the multiple priorities that we have in life, right? That's what keeps us from sticking to these good ideas that we have and turning our intentions into behaviors. But if you can get your team to be mutually accountable in a non-defensive way, because you're doing it now for the good of the organization, so that you can all hold each other accountable, that's just another layer. And that makes things so much more likely to occur rather than just relying on good intentions. So I would say those are the major themes from the book. Hopefully that's helpful.
Wow, that is some powerful information. Some of these things are even for me, guys. I mean, wow, that is amazing information. Guys, you want to replay this interview. You really want to take notes. I'm telling you, these are some core things that we are getting here from Ms. Walker. And again, you can learn more of these strategies and a lot more by buying this book. So first, let's see. If there was one powerful thing, just one nugget that you could give to our audience, take through 2019, what would it be?
Yeah, I would say, can I give them two if I'm quick? The first thing is just to think bigger, right? We have these limits that we self-impose on ourselves about what's possible. And often it's because we don't know how to think bigger, right? I have this wonderful story from the guy who founded Quest Nutrition, and I'll tell it quite quickly, but he interviewed like 1,500 people who were coming to work for his company, and he asked each of them, if I have a magic genie, what would you like from the magic genie? This was an interview question. And they said a job, and he said, okay, that's a job, and it can't be for somebody else. What would you like for you? And every one of them, without exception, said the same thing. Do you know what they said when he said, you can have anything, what do you want? They said, I want $1 million. And he said, at first I thought people were just messing with me, right, that somebody outside was telling them to say that to me. Because he said, we're in California, Southern California. You can't even buy a house for $1 million, right? So if you have a magic genie, you could have anything. But it's because we're around people who, that's the big goal. We all think the same thing. So find ways to think bigger. Really push yourself to get outside your box and to stretch yourself into ways that might seem really risky, but it's really about just taking the first or next step to move in that direction. So that's one. I said the second thing is just take control of your time, right? I've been given a couple of tips around that have been particularly useful for me. One comes from the guy who started Y Combinator, and it's about having maker days and manager days. And I love this because our days get all sort of jumbled up with having doing calls like this, or trying to respond to clients, or creating new content, and we do a lot of task switching. But if we can take chunks of our time, a day or even a half a day, and just devote them to either creating content or sort of managing our clients and the content we've already created, that can make a big difference. And so I think those are the two things that if I were just going to tell almost anyone to pay attention to, if you're not already doing those things, find ways to support yourself in doing them.
All right. There you have it, guys. I like that. That is some real power tools to take us through 2019. So tell us, Ms. Walker, if we wanted to connect with you, how could we do that?
Great. First, look for the book. So No Dumbing Down, which you can buy on all the places online that you would normally buy a book. You can also go to my website, which is KarenWalker.us. And there's a link there for the book. You can go to nodumbingdown.com. That will take you directly to a place to buy it. So that's the first. There's a lot of information on my website, which could be useful. There are other podcasts and as well as newsletters. And then on any of the social media platforms, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, I'm just Karen Walker US. So pretty easy to find in that way.
All right, and guys, you already know, you go to my website, I have a blog post with all of her contact information. Again, guys, this has been, I know you guys are loving this session today. This has been an incredible interview. Ms. Walker, thank you so much for taking out your time. We know you have a busy schedule to really give us these nuggets today. All right, well, we will be in touch. We will keep in contact. If there's nothing else you'd like to add.
Oh, just to say I really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you and your audience today, so thank you for that.
The pleasure is all ours. Thank you so much. All right.
Take good care.
Bye.